Welcome back, everybody. It's Paul Maglev here with Train Valley 2. And today I really wanted to take a look at Build 35, which just came out a few days ago. I was going to do Build 33 and do a showcase of that and some of the bug fixes there, but it seems that there really isn't... I didn't get the opportunity to actually go and do that because I was preoccupied with other things. One of them being getting my certification for being a brakeman over at the Niles Canyon Railway Museum. And I wanted to do a showcase here of another level. This one in particular, Fire and Ice by Stormies, because it's a unique level in terms of its concept design. It's got geographic bottlenecks, and we all like those. And what else does it have? It has all the generations of locomotives available to us except the first one, which will be nice to see, and I can stick that in the thumbnail because I didn't get to earlier. And now I feel like I've got some sort of a headache or something. But yeah, we're just gonna go collect some of our non-renewable resources. And while we get onto that, we're going to take a look at what happened during my experiences trying to learn to be a brakeman. The first day, I actually went to Niles Canyon, which I hadn't done in what feels like 5 years or so, or more, possibly. You know, it was 5 years. I did my senior project there with the Maintenance of Way crew. For high school. But what I wanted to say was that I went over, I did the first introductory visit in which we got the lecture on how everything gets taken care of over at Niles Canyon, and as far as I can tell, the way everything was being taught was a little confusing to me, but maybe that was just me because everybody else seemed to be doing just fine with the exam that took place immediately after, which is a little bit surprising because you don't give like 3 hours of lecture and then after rambling on about that, going straight into a multiple choice quiz exam thingamabob. Or at least I certainly would hope that you wouldn't do that. And some other people were overviewing the process of actually getting the new brakeman taught what they were supposed to be learning about, and I can certainly tell from what I've heard that they definitely want to change up the curriculum so that it's a lot more clear and coherent, because the way it was presented originally was not optimal, which isn't too surprising because what did I get? There were about 28 questions. One of them was completely off base, so it didn't count. But out of all those questions, you could only afford to mess up on no more than 6, and I had just barely eked by with just 5 answers wrong. I was really hoping that wouldn't have happened, but I was really overwhelmed that day with a lot of information and I just couldn't think straight after the fact. The day after, though, was a lot simpler. Actually going out into the field, because I still technically did pass the exam. And it was kind of an interesting foray into what we had to do. And I really appreciated the opportunities we were given. One of the things, though, that I would say is that... What would I say? Or need to mention? I would need to mention that I I certainly did feel like a fish out of water, but it was a very critical learning experience, considering how I learned from all the mistakes that day and whatnot. It's a bit of a long story. And I'd rather not talk about it. But first time around, it was also an interesting experience. There were quite a few people that day because it was the Silent Film Festival that was taking place that day up in Niles. So we got to see some people who stopped by there who wanted to take the train ride, and they did. And we also got to see this guy who was dressed up as Charlie Chaplin, of course, for the Silent Film Festival, and apparently he comes out every year, from what he's told us, to just kind of stop by and showcase and kind of improvise on the spot. And what else was there? Yeah, he comes from a place a little north of Toronto, and each year the Silent Film Festival invites him over because he does such a good impersonation of Charlie Chaplin's Tramp. The Tramp persona. And what else was there? Well, there was that. We got to have an extra car that day. An extra rail car added to our consist. And I'm really glad that we actually got it. I'm really glad that we actually didn't have to use it the next time around on the Sunday after that, because for some reason a dining car has a generator that's really messy. Like, it just has this plume of smoke that comes out from underneath cabin's undercarriage, and it's kind of overbearing and annoying, if not an outright nuisance. And what did I do? Oh yeah, I was told to check the I was told to go check the traps, which is the entryways and the exitways to our old Pullman cars. And that meant, because I was specifically asked to go over to the traps over with this dining car, that I basically had to sit. I had to sit in the fumes or whatever. I didn't appreciate that very much, but I kind of worked around it, tried to stay upwind, and then it worked out from there. What else did I do? It was a really long day the first time around, and what I feel was exceptionally, like, the best part of it was near the end. It didn't feel like the best part, but in retrospect it was actually kind of funny. And that's why I want to actually tell everybody about it. So basically we were trying to send the dining car back to its proper place in the rail yard. Bright side is what we call it. And when we tried to do that, we were shuffling some other things around, the caboose that we had for that train that day, and some other things. And we thought that we were going to be just A-okay, just with... We'd be just A-okay with sticking one of the, what was the word I was looking for? Sticking some of the cars that were strung together and bringing them a little further away from the steam locomotive shed, because that has its own dedicated shed. And we tried to move some rail cars away from it that were strung together with an F unit from the Western Pacific. And for some reason, the two black tank cars loaded with water didn't move an inch. because the coupling between that F unit and those tank cars wasn't proper, so they just unhooked, and then we had to hook them back again and again and again to make sure that the bonds between the couplers would stay in place. And no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't get it to work the way it was supposed to. I'm not entirely sure why that was the case. The rationale was that we were just tired at the end of the day. And the people who came after us would have done it a lot more simply because they had probably started the day doing that and they knew what they were doing because it was in the morning and your mind is fresh and you're not tired and that sort of thing. So every single time we tried to hook up all the cars together in this single siding, we would always bring the tank cars a little bit closer, inch by inch, to the actual door for the locomotive shed, which was obviously not a good thing, and we were beginning to wonder what we should do because we had failed so many times and we were basically just transferring kinetic energy from our powered locomotive and the cars attached to it to those tank cars, which were getting uncomfortably too close to the engine door's shed. Our original intention was to actually bring it further away, and we wound up getting it so close that if we tried it again, we might have punched a hole in the door. And luckily we didn't. And I'm glad that we didn't. But as soon as we got a little too close for comfort, we just kind of called it quits for the day and just left the cars there as they were. And eventually it was just taken care of later. What else happened that day? I think that was like the biggest highlight of the day that was outside of our control, in a sense. And because of that, I actually felt a little bit better about that than I did about other things, because I was really embarrassed whenever I goofed up or made a mistake, which I'm not entirely sure why I would be that way, but then again, I'm usually not one to be embarrassed or self-conscious, which is why it kind of confused me. But yeah, it was a big learning experience that day. And was there anything else I did on that day? I swear it was such an adventure. I can say though that the second time around was a lot easier and we only had to deal with our basic normal consist without the dining car because it wasn't reserved for anything for that matter. And I think that was pretty much it as far as I can tell. Now obviously I'm just kind of trying to stay focused here while multitasking. I've been getting a lot of phone calls from a bunch of robots and other business entities. I can already hear it's buzzing outside of the view of this camera. And I'm not entirely sure why that's the case, because I really don't have much in the ways of money. But there's always some sort of an automated thing that just leaves a voicemail, and they're like, hey, here's this thing we're interested in telling you about, and I'm not interested, thank you. No solicitors. and no soliciting. But apparently, I don't think they got the memo. And it's really hard to actually deal with these kinds of things. I think I remember seeing a little news segment from, I think it was the local ABC affiliate. Something about how you're able to basically trick the caller ID system, which kind of makes it a system that's almost pointless as a result. Because somehow they figured out a way, telemarketers that is, they figured out a way to actually disguise themselves and their phone numbers so it looks like they're calling from your local area. And I'm not entirely sure what kind of newfangled technology is needed to actually do this, but I would not be surprised in the slightest, to be honest, because knowing them and knowing that all that really matters to them is money, I can understand that they would do everything short of breaking the law to actually try to sell me something, because why not? I have to go look up that article or segments. I wouldn't be too surprised if it was posted online somewhere, and I'd be able to post the hyperlink to it, or that sort of thing. Just a thought. But you'd think that something like that would actually make me feel uncomfortable, and strangely enough it does not. Considering the amounts of crazy things that have happened in the last 2 years or so, it's the least of my concerns. But there are, on a different note, just changing gears, there always seems to be a new bill for Train Valley 2 that becomes available. And obviously that's always a good thing, but I wish I was able to actually keep up with it. Excuse me. Because then I can actually post them at my own pace. Because I always like to add something new every single time there's a new build of the early access. And I feel like I still haven't actually gotten all the stuff I wanted to. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to need way more materials and resources and laborers. But yeah, I think after this I'll finally be able to start my other series that I wanted to earlier, that I didn't get the chance to, because I was heavily distracted by the sort of, what was it? I think it was the international turmoil that transpired over the last 2 weeks. Everyone's losing their mind, and I'm just trying to just stay chill. But it's also important to stay informed as well. But you know what they say. What was I going to say? I was going to say that you know what they say. No news is good news. And I think that's the notes I wanted to leave off on that. But once I get all these locomotives to their destinations, I should be able to dispatch some of the coiled copper wire. Yeah, that's wire. And then take it over to their respective locations. And then I can make some extra polymers, which for some reason are made over here in what looks like one of the steel forges. It's even got the little moving parts associated with it, and the animations and the assets. But I think we're almost finished. And I'm surprised I haven't been using all my money to actually upgrade my fleet. Because now we can have these sprinters that go really, really fast. I'm gonna need some more coal though. So all we have left are the polymers that we need to actually build. Produce. And then from there we should have this level wrapped up. Oh, looks like we missed the other deadline for completing the level in 20 minutes. Oh well. But it is a neat level that requires you to do some basic problem-solving skills from a logistical standpoint. And then from there, that's pretty much it. So yeah, that was... what was it? It was Fire and Ice. Or was it Fire and Ice by Stormies with a Z. And I will see you in the next episode when there's going to be some more content from Train Valley 2 that I'll be able to showcase. But until then, take care, stay awesome, stay true to yourself, and remember to never give up. Bye everybody.